Hello, welcome to Free Will, Science, and Religion. I'm Chandler Klebs, and I'm here with George Ortega, Nick Vale, and Jamie Soden. And we understand that we don't have a free will and that we couldn't have done otherwise. And yet, there's still damage done in our relationships with other people when we say things that we shouldn't have, or they said something they shouldn't have, and we still regret things. So we're actually going to be talking more about how do we restore relationships. So we're kind of getting more into that, what can be done, because we can't go back with a time machine and change the events. So what's the next best thing?
Um, I'd think the next best thing would be to talk it over and try to move on from the situation. I mean, all you can do is learn from the past and then um, use that, use that information to try and be better people.
We've got the problem of emotion is always, almost always going to trump logic and reason. So when you're dealing with, especially romantic relations, I know Jamie, you're talking about your brother, but that's not, when you have boyfriends and girlfriends going at it, you've got pride, you've got ego, you're disrespecting me, you made a joke out of the relationship. So in that moment, with especially crimes of passion where people actually kill each other and homicide and suicide, boyfriends fine, girlfriends cheating. It's really that moment is emotion. You could be a no free will expert and a no free will guru and still go bananas because you've got emotion trumping reason. And that's what I think is the biggest problem, coupled with the fact that I'll be 44 in a few weeks, and I just learned there's no free will about 3 years ago. So I've got 41 years of unconscious free will thinking and 3 years of no free will thinking. So in that situation, I had many more years of free will, thinking. And on top of that, we're in a culture that 99% of the people believe in free will. So just because I don't believe in free will makes it very hard for me to react in a no free will way when you, me, George, and Jamie, and a few other nuts, understand it. So I had three things against me. I had emotion trumping reason. I had that nobody gets it. I had 40 thirds of me, 40/40 thirds of me believing, in the old model. So I kind of had three things working against me. Now, someone raised with the no free will model in the future who has 43 out of 43 years of knowing there's no free will, and in a society that everybody gets it, will still have the last problem that emotion trumps reason. But at least you'd only have one problem out of the three that I just mentioned. So
Yeah.
I had three things working against me. That I'm one of the few people that gets it. So I'm arguing with her in the wrong paradigm because I'm in a free will culture. I have 40 years out of 43 conditioning believing in free will, and then the Holy Grail, which we should address, because even 500 years from now, you'll have kids that get it from birth, right, and they'll be raised, but you'll still have the emotion trumping reason problem. So,
Wow.
which of those three,
Well, Nick, let me.
how can you overcome the emotion? So once we solve the other two, where everybody gets it, and you're 43 years out of 43 years raised with it, you're still going to have emotions. You're
Nick,
still
let me
going to
address.
have wait. You're still going to have your ego. You're still going to have your pride. You're still going to feel disrespected. You're going to still feel dishonored if your girlfriend, is cheating on you. You're still going to have all those problems of you're making me looking like a joke.
All right, here.
So
Let
how
me
would you
address
address that?
that. Our emotions are very connected with our thoughts. In other words, like our emotions often arise because of the thoughts we're thinking. So you're right. The 30 years of conditioning, the 42 years of conditioning you've had with this free will belief, whatever, 43 years, basically,
No,
to
I
the
had
extent,
40. I had 40 out of 43. I had 3 years of
whatever.
understanding. Okay, all right.
Okay, all right, but it's like, to the extent you overcome that, and again, you understand very strongly intellectually that you don't have a free will, but now
Yes.
to the extent that you start putting it into practice, day after day, week after week, month after month, then all of a sudden the thoughts that you're having are going to be different. They're going to change. They're going to conform to this new belief system, and then the emotions will follow. Then, like when somebody like does something that seems disrespectful, instead of taking it personally, you say to yourself, "Huh, why is the universe doing this? Why is the universe making this person, speak that way to
So
me and stuff?"
are you theorizing that emotions, anybody raised with our podcast and grows up in a no free will world, their emotions will not trump reason? Is that what you're theorizing? That's hard to
Um,
believe.
Nick, I'm theorizing that like not immediately, but that's actually the goal. That's why I'm doing the show, because we predict that the more people understand
I
that nobody
think
has a free will,
I
the
think the
stronger.
generations that the generations that get this will still have the problem of emotion trumping reason, no matter what the reason, no matter how well they get this.
Well, I mean, imagine, Nick, we're in a very diluted world right now. Almost everybody believes in free will. It's very hard to keep
No.
sane, to keep rational amidst every time you turn on the TV, and see a drama, you're seeing people relate to each other free will paradigm. So that conditions it. It's very hard to decondition yourself
You
within
also
this
see
kind of environment.
films, you see this, whole, um, what's the word I'm looking for? You have this emphasis of revenge, against the bad guy.
Exactly. That's what our culture teaches. So yeah, you might get it intellectually, no has free will, but you're right. The conditioning is so strong from those 40 years, whatever, that it like it can't be overcome overnight. And so like we may have to wait a decade or two before enough people get it strongly enough, start teaching it to others, and it takes it. This is how it may take working a pioneering step.
Okay,
But
but
again,
people will still have emotions.
right.
Of
But
course.
for example, your emotion, for example, like the emotion that you're angry at someone, right? That's an emotion, okay? But you're angry at someone because they did something.
Well,
At them,
actually, I'm angry at her, but she couldn't, she couldn't help herself either. Obviously, apparently.
well, that's the thing. So, Limbo, you know that, but it's one thing to know it intellectually. It's another thing to know it so profoundly that your emotions are then influenced by it.
That's kind of hard to believe that you could be disrespected and just not be emotional.
Chandler, what's your take on this?
Well, I think what George is trying to get at, Nick, is that our emotions will catch up with our reason. That the more well we know something and the longer we've known it, the more our emotions will catch up. So there won't always be this disconnect where you have these emotions from
Mm,
40 years of conditioning under a free will paradigm and then 3 years understanding no free will. It could just be that, you have emotions conditioned the old way, and so you still sort of revert back to that, because I
right.
think that's what's going on. And like, for example, a good comparison is sort of like, for example, when atheists, they still sometimes flip back to this, having this fear that they're going to hell. That's a common example of how somebody knows one thing and they're not afraid when they're logical, but then emotionally they still have this fear of something or some other emotion that trumps that at times, but over time it diminishes.
Right.
Right,
And
and
what
that's
about
the thing. Go ahead.
and what about this whole thing? We're still in a free will paradigm culture. So if this situation had happened to me and everybody got it from birth, it would have helped a lot. So we're in a free will. We're still in even though I don't believe in free will, and George and you guys don't believe, I still have to basically act as if I have free will because I'm operating in a free will culture. So that wasn't helping matters either at all.
Yeah, it's true. We're in a culture where most people still believe in free will and they blame people. Um, this is kind of an interesting thing because, yeah, like, and I don't know exactly your ex-girlfriend is as far as that all goes. Like if she's still blaming you under a free will paradigm or not.
She says I'm a deeply troubled individual now.
Uh-huh. Well,
All right, relate this to happiness. In other words, I
Well, I
think we
don't like
all
being I don't
know.
like being called a deeply troubled individual. I
No,
can't
but
take it.
the universe. First of all, the universe made you do, what you did to have the universe make Nick's girlfriend, react the way she did. So you guys understand the surreal nature of this entire
Yeah, but
thing.
I'm starting to internalize that I'm a deeply troubled individual now because she said so. She knows me for 6 years, and now she's saying I'm deeply troubled.
All right, but that's another
I
issue.
mean, wait. Anya didn't say I'm deeply troubled. The universe through Anya told me I'm deeply troubled.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. So like when you
Yeah, but
see it from that
I don't like
perspective,
that. That bothers me. I don't care if it's
of
free
course
will
it
or not.
bothers you. That's what I'm saying. We're not saying like that overcoming the free will belief is going to solve everything, but like to the extent that you get it and she gets it and you get it really strongly, then that helps like you resolve things. That helps you talk.
well, and Nick, even if you were a deeply troubled individual,
Yeah, that's
not
better. Talk to me that way. Even if go ahead.
yeah, I'm just saying, it's not your fault for even if that were true, it's not your fault, and surely it must help some to know that.
Ah. So yes, I have to accept that I'm a deeply troubled individual, but it's not my fault. So therefore, I'm not going to add the second layer of that I caused my deep. I'm still in pain over it, but I didn't cause. It's my genetics and my parents and everything else that causes me to be. But I feel very, very unlucky. I mean, unlucky to a degree where I don't know what to do at this stage.
Yeah, and that's the thing is
What's the cure for unluckiness? No,
Happiness, luck.
winning the lottery would be the antidote. If I'm unlucky with love or whatever, I need some luck, and the only way I can get luck is to play the lotto and win. Well, that's luck.
Win the happiness lottery.
Yeah, but how do I do that?
Basically, you bliss out. You say like, I want happiness
Yeah,
more
but
than
that's not
anything
luck. That's
else.
going to take effort.
All right, so like it's effort and some luck. 'Cause, like it's luck if you succeed. It's not up to you whether you succeed or not. So that's luck.
Yeah. So the way to get rid of unluck is to get luck. So other than winning the lottery, I don't know what else could make me feel lucky.
huh.
Right. You're lucky if you keep working on this no free will perspective and make yourself to more strongly understand that nothing you did was your fault, nothing that your girlfriend did was her fault, nothing that anyone does is our fault. To the extent you understand that more and more strongly, you're going to get luckier and luckier because you're going to have fewer and fewer negative emotions.
But
You know,
my definition of luck is a mathematical improbability coming through on your side of the coin. So all the things that happen to me in the simultaneous chronological kind of sequential, the pictures and the no pictures and the fiance, all those things represented like a lottery that went against me. That was like 1 out of 1 million plus one out of everything that happened was so bizarre. You know, I don't need to counterbalance that with just learning about no free will. I need some sort of mathematical improbability to come in my favor now
Well, the
to
mathematical
reverse that.
improbability, that's your like. In other words, it's mathematically very improbable for anybody to transcend the free will belief to
All
the
right,
extent.
fine.
Definitely.
But
yeah,
I mean, for example, a mathematical improbability that could reverse this would be like I decide to go to Kansas tomorrow on a whim, and then I rent a car and I blow out the tire, and then I get hit by another car, and I end up in a hospital in Wichita. And then Anya's there in the bed next to me. That would be some sort like she happened to be on business in Kansas and got hit by a car in Wichita and ended up in the hospital. That would reverse it. Then we would think we were meant for each other again. I would need something so bizarre, probability wise, mathematically, to make me feel lucky to reverse the damage. It would have to be something like I just stated about being in Kansas and running into her in the hospital and say, "Oh, what are you doing here?" Well, I was in Kansas and I got hit by a car. So, that's the kind of thing I'm looking for that would reverse this.
All right, Nick, but
That would make us look at each other and say, What are we both doing in the same room in Wichita, Kansas, with broken legs? That's obviously God saying we should be together.
Dude,
That's the only way.
Nick, I get what you're saying, and you're completely right. In other words, like
Yeah,
understanding that we don't have free will doesn't solve everything. But come on, but we got to let's pull it back to the free will thing. What can you do
that's how
that
unlucky I feel. That's the kind
no,
of luck that could reverse
I
it.
understand. I understand. But what can you do to kind of like to strengthen the truth that what you did wasn't up to you, that how Anya responded wasn't up to her, that
I'm
whole
looking
thing.
for luck. I'm looking for luck reversal.
No, that it's
George.
No.
not just. Go ahead, Jamie.
Yeah, what this no free will paradigm will do is reduce the amount of violent incidents. You know, that's if people get to understand it better. You know,
Well, explain
Reduce
how that works. How
what?
does that work?
What will reduce?
because people will be less likely to blame each other. There'll be less, anger towards the individual involved. They'll be more angry at the universe or thing or whatever. You know.
Mm-hmm.
So in your case, Nick, you and she will be on the same side, wondering to yourselves, "Oh my God, why is the universe doing this to us?" Rather than she wondering why you're doing this to her, and she wondering why she, um, you know what I mean.
Yeah.
You'd be both addressing your anger and
Yeah, but we
dissatisfaction
could
at the
both
universe.
say the universe did this to us, so we shouldn't be together.
And this doesn't solve everything. We're not
No.
saying it does, but it makes solving things so much easier, so much more intelligent.
Yeah. You know what? I think what George is getting at is that even though the whole no free will paradigm doesn't magically just fix everything, it does at least make it possible for everything to be restored in some way, because at least you are on the same side, you and your ex-girlfriend. It's not you versus her. it's
Mm-hmm.
it's the universe or the causal
Right.
past that's
Right.
led to this breakup. And so I think that you at least have a way of working it out, whereas perhaps if you were blaming yourself with that kind of blame that only free will belief allows, well, then you would be more depressed. You would be so much worse off. That it actually would make it worse and ruin any chances of making it right and reversing your luck.
Right. Okay. Mm.
Yeah, I mean, you don't say, oh, um to a tree that falls on top of your car and smashes it. You don't say to a tree, oh, you're going to hell, you've got an evil soul or whatever. It's just nature. If something like wrecks your car, it's just an unfortunate event.
All right, so now here's the thing. So we're talking theory. Now, how do we put this into practice? In other words, like if we want to become stronger, we know it's not going to happen overnight. We know we go to the gym and work out with weights like day after day, week after week, and it happens. So what can we do on a regular basis to strengthen our understanding that absolutely nothing is up to us? I have one suggestion. For example, if we're watching a movie on TV or watching the news, and anytime anyone says anything that you don't agree with, that sounds wrong, sounds immoral, you just remind yourself. And actually, it might be a good practice like to count the instances that you can detect on, let's say, a half an hour or an hour drama of people saying these things, and you're like noticing, oh, this person like said something wrong, but it wasn't up to them. So like I think the idea is to get ourselves more in the practice of being able to do that. And if we practice this, basically as a routine, like going to the, then that strengthens our understanding, so then we can apply it more easily when it comes in situations in our life. But what other strategies we can use to do this?
Hmm. I'm not sure. This is a very interesting thing we're exploring, because we're trying to make it very practical, very real to people. Because we want to explain how this will actually help people in their lives deal with situations like this. And I mean, I really feel bad for Nick and his situation here, and I don't really know how to relate to that kind of thing specifically, because I've never experienced that.
Mm-hmm.
But for what it's worth, and I don't know if this will help, but I've had this sort of struggle, in the past. month, actually past few years really, like where I would like to fix all the problems of the world. I would like to, end all the suffering, end all the evil. And particularly I've been upset about, the animal slaughter and all that. And um, for a while, like back when I had this delusion, like, hey, I'm gonna set the world right and fix everything, and like that sort of thing, thinking that I had the power to actually change the whole world. Well, for a while, that sort of gave me like this boost, like this drive to do something, and I guess that I felt like I had some kind of power. But now I'm realizing that most of the world's not going to change their ways, at least not as fast as I would like. And so I'm trying to figure out recently, because I understand that it's not my fault. It's not like that I failed in some way, that because I couldn't change everybody else and stop them from killing and raping and all those evil things that happen in this world, but I still have to deal with it. Like it doesn't solve everything that that I understand. I don't have that nobody has a free will, so I'm not blaming or hating anybody. But there's still bad stuff happening, and so I'm still in the process of reconciling that. And what do I do about what I'm feeling about
All right,
this?
here's another technique, and we may, maybe tomorrow, let's do this podcast with this technique. We're accustomed to saying, well, I and they, and in other words, anytime we're making a statement that refers to us or another person, rather than saying I did this or she did this, let's get into like let's for this practice say, well, the universe made me say this, and the universe made her do that. Well, in other words, like, let's do this tomorrow, like maybe we can add as a component to this that whenever anybody messes up, the rest of us who catch it say the universe just made you mess up or something like that, because in other words, when we change the grammar, naturally we're not going to talk this way, with our friends and stuff because it's a little awkward. For an experiment, for practice, getting into the perspective of understanding that nothing is up to us, I think grammatically going from the I did this to the universe made me do this, will really help strengthen that understanding.
I moved back into the living room because I wanted to watch a soccer game. Just so you
All
know,
right, well,
since I'm the one living in the situation, it's very clear to me what I need is a feeling of luck to counterbalance the unluck. And I know Dan Dennett says that luck equals out in the long run, but I'm not living that. I feel that I've had much more bad breaks than the average person. I'm much unlucky. I'm way more unlucky. So all this nonsense about changing the vocabulary to from I to the universe, that George, that sounds great. But you're not living the situation I'm living in. It's really that Kansas example I gave, where the only real way to counter back unluck is to feel lucky. So I could go run and get a lottery ticket tonight, and I feel like I'm deserving of a very lucky break to counterbalance the unluck. And I think people deep down want to feel more or less as lucky or unlucky as the average person. And unfortunately for me, I feel much more unlucky.
yeah. So
Yeah,
you're saying
That would
you're
be the
not
no.
you're saying
That would be the correct no free will paradigm. It's luck versus unluck. So I need to do something to make me start feeling lucky, which is what I can't imagine what it could be.
well, Nick, maybe there's something that you really like to do. There's some talent or some hobby that you have that you really like to do, and that maybe you can feel lucky about that. Even if it's not necessarily relevant to your situation, at least having something else to feel lucky about might help you.
Hmm. Okay, but what about my overall feeling that I've gotten way more bad breaks than the average person? The way I was raised and all this depression and all this hospitals, all this bullshit. I mean, I
well,
just
yeah, your
feel,
mom, you're born on the Upper East Side of New York City. Your mom is living in a penthouse now. How can you say you had more bad breaks than most people? I think your problem is like, like you had a very, very fortunate life, very early, and so that
yeah.
can like that creates problems. But that's a lot. But you're luckier.
Yeah, but the average person hasn't been in a hospital. I've been in so many. It's like that's there's something very unlucky about my life. Now, if we become the world's most famous people for doing this, that would be the only, consolation prize, I would think. There's got to be some sort of duality to, as unlucky as you feel, it should balance out in theory, you would think. Right?
All right, first of all, Dennett is wrong about that. In other words, like James B. Miles wrote in his
I know,
book, The
I know,
Fear of
and I know he's
Delusion.
wrong. Yeah.
Right.
No,
So,
that's Dennett's defense. That's Dennett's defense to free will, that luck averages out. When he talks about poor people, he's still kind of blaming them because he's saying luck all averages out. So that's still a way of telling the poor people, your poverty is your fault, because Dennett thinks he's gotten terrible bad breaks as well, and he's overcome them with his free will. That's what
Well,
Dennett's really saying.
well, you know what? This is kind of strange because obviously Dennett's wrong as far as in this life, luck doesn't average out in the long run. We know that.
Saying your luck does not average out, right?
Yeah, it doesn't average out. It's not like everyone
Right.
experiences an equal amount of good and bad in their whole life. But
Right.
you know what's interesting, Nick? Now I don't know if this will help you feel better or worse. And so I hope that this doesn't come across wrong. But here's a comfort that I get because I think, well, eventually we're all going to die. And so, in the end, the way I view it anyway, is that it does average out in that sense because we're all equally non-existent. And maybe that helps me in some way. It kind of makes me feel better. I don't know how that affects you or other people, but that's an interesting thought because the reason that helps me is knowing that nobody wins and nobody loses. You know?
Well, what if I have a terribly depressed life and I'm in 8,000 and 500 psychiatric hospitals, and she goes on and marries this other guy that she cheated on me with and has a great life, and then we both die, like 80. I mean, we both die, but she has a fun, happy life, and I have a miserably depressed life. So I don't see how does that even the score that we're both going to die. I don't get it.
Well, maybe it doesn't even the score, but at least your unluck doesn't last forever.
Okay.
yet, Nick, yeah, absolutely. In other words, our life, 80, 100 years. Think of it relative to the 13.8 billion years, to the Big Bang, and the trillions of years, whatever that span ahead of us. So, like this life is just it's like a
What about
drink.
this nonsense that people tell me where everything happens for a reason? Such as her cheating on me and me cursing her and calling her those horrible things and her hating. Everything happens for a reason. It's supposed to be, in theory, from my 5 therapists, the consolation prize. That's the prize.
Well, that's
Everything happens
yes,
for a
Nick. So,
reason.
so here's the thing. So listen to me. Listen
What
to me, Nick. So
reason?
basically, listen to me. Listen to me. We got like a minute and a half.
All
Basically,
right.
to the extent that you move from the free will belief to understanding that the universe does something, then you ask that question. Like let's say you cultivate the
Ah,
belief. You can't prove it, but like things happen for the best. So you ask yourself, what reason could the universe have? And so then like that shifts you up, and you're exploring. You're exploring
all right.
actually
Well, the
a very
reason is that you're living here now, and I'm not supposed to be married to her with kids like that. My dream is shared, but the reason doesn't come right away. It could take a year or two or 10. I mean, we don't know. You know, you don't know what the reason where something happens right away. It takes years, at least months.
right,
At least.
Chandler. About 50 seconds to
All
go.
right.
Why don't you wrap things up?
Yeah, okay, we're gonna end this one for now.
All right.
Okay, you've been listening to Free Will, Science, and Religion, and this has sort of been an in-depth conversation. And well, I don't really know what else to say, but we're gonna be having more episodes in the future, and I hope you enjoyed this.